guest is a self-leadership coach, speaker, and author with deep knowledge in the science of building courageous and emotional intelligent mindsets. He spends most of his time developing authentically courageous leadership through keynotes, workshops, and individual coaching. He's the author of Swipe Right on Your Best Self: Simple Steps to a Bolder Life with Fewer Regrets. Welcome to the show, Eric. How are you doing?
Toby, good morning from Sydney, Australia, Toby. I'm doing very, very well. And good evening to everyone in Hamburg. Guten Abend,
Guten
jedermann.
Abend. Guten Abend. Thank you so much for joining me today on this episode of mirrortalk podcast. I really appreciate you making time, despite the time differences, to sit with me today virtually to talk about everything I'm going to learn from you today. So I'll first love us to, talk about you a little bit. Like, I would love to learn more about your life journey so far. Being born in England till moving to Australia. How did it begin beside the seaside, beside the sea?
Yes. That's right. You've done your research, Toby. Very good. Yeah, I grew up by the seaside in England, in the bottom right-hand corner, where on a good day you can see France. On a good day we could see the French coast. So
Wow.
I grew up by the seaside there in a town called Ramsgate.
Mm.
And yeah, it was a very happy childhood. Sadly, my father did pass away when I was 5, but as a child, kids are very resilient and they bounce back. But I grew up watching a very courageous mother taking care of the family, suddenly becoming the breadwinner, starting a business, becoming an entrepreneur, and working very, very hard. So I think I inherited a sort of resolute work ethic from my mother. And I always had an interest in human performance, just an interest in when are we at our best. And I had a long career actually as an IT consultant, working in the Middle East, working in Munich, in Germany, working in Scotland, in Edinburgh, and in Australia. In all of these environments, Toby, I don't know if you spent any time working with computer people, but the work environment is always it's like an emergency. It's continual emergency because you're running these big computer systems and large organizations. For example, like Qantas, the airline, they depend on the computers underneath to be able to do everything. So when the Qantas ticket booking system stops working, I can tell you there's a lot of phones start ringing in the office where we're taking care of that system. So there's a lot of pressure, a lot of challenge, and I was intrigued. It didn't matter where I was in the world, whether it was the Middle East, Germany, Scotland, Australia, or the US. It didn't matter where I was. There were leaders when the pressure was on, when the heat was really on, when the phones were all ringing, when people are shouting. There were some people who could manage their minds very well. They could get the best out of themselves, stay calm, think effectively, and most importantly, get the best out of others. Really impressive people in all cultures. But there were people in different cultures who were equally as intelligent, equally as experienced, as smart, who knew just as much, who, when the pressure was on, would lose it to some degree. They'd panic a little bit. They couldn't think as effectively. It took them longer to solve problems, and they would infect their teams with their worry as well. So it was contagious. Worry was contagious. And I wanted to know what made the difference. Hang on, what's going on here? It's not culture. It's not intelligence. What is it? I took a big step back and I've immersed myself in the science of human performance. So I've got 2 master's degrees now in human behavioral science. And there's a rich body of knowledge, which I've had the pleasure of soaking in, Toby. It's like a big hot bath. I've been soaking in this knowledge of how do we help ourselves and help the people we work with and live with to be their best, even when life is challenging.
Yes.
And I've been doing that for the last 12 years now. So I've left IT and I've been moving between organizations, sharing what I know and helping people to develop their own personal ability to meet life's challenges more effectively, to get the best out of themselves and the best out of the people they live, love, and lead.
Mm. That's really impressive. That's really awesome. And I find it very impressive that you have, 2 master degrees in human behavioral change. I find that really cool. Can you tell me about this a little bit? What causes our behavior to change, and how is our behavior connected to courage?
Ah, well, it's my belief that courage, our ability to be courageous, will actually determine the quality of our lives.
Mm.
It's as important as that, because it's really the fears that we hold that will determine the boundaries of our lives, how far we are willing to go, what is the edge of our comfort zone. So if we're going to step over the comfort zone and grow, learn new things, form new partnerships, start new businesses, it's going to require courage. There are no guarantees on the other side of the comfort zone. There are no promises that everything's going to be all right. No, just ask for this raise. You'll always get it. Ask that person out for a date. They'll always say yes. Apply for that job, try a new business, learn a new skill. There are no guarantees. So our ability to develop as people really depends upon our willingness to take the behaviors that move us into this zone of discomfort.
Mm.
And that requires courage.
Mm.
Courage isn't having no fears at all, being supremely confident, just knowing that everything's going to be all right. That's not courage. That's, I don't know, blind optimism. That might be blind optimism.
Yeah.
But when we're willing to do what matters with the experience of some uncertainty, some doubt, some anxiety, that's courage,
Mm.
taking action with courage. And it turns out that courage isn't some stuff that you've got inside you. It's not like a glowing orb that you're either born with or you don't have. It's actually a set of skills, that we can all develop. Doesn't matter where you are on that spectrum between fearful and bold. Every single one of us can develop our ability to move a little bit further towards the bold end of the spectrum.
Wow.
It's skills. Yeah.
Yes. And talking about, developing skills, you are committed to helping people develop self-leadership skills to meet their most challenging, to meet their most important challenges more effectively. Like
Yes.
you are committed to, helping everybody to, develop these skills so that they can face each challenge of their life, much more effective. So, what are some of these self-leadership skills that we could develop, and
Yeah.
how can we meet these challenges of life that we have to attack? Or yeah.
Mm. So some of these skills are the skills that enable us to choose to be courageous at all. So the first thing I'd say is that it's natural for the human mind to imagine the worst. It's just how we've been developed. It's how we've evolved. That the mind loves safety. It just adores safety, and it's very good at dreaming up how things might go very, very badly wrong if we take action. So the first skill that we need to develop is self-awareness. It's recognizing what are the stories we're telling ourselves. What are the things that we are feeling, being able to name them, being able to label them, and being able to describe more accurately what is it I'm saying myself, what is my self-talk. We all have a tendency to either be in two places. We're either in our heads, in this kind of fantasy land, we're imagining the future or remembering the past, or we're here in the real world, actually seeing each other, seeing real things.
Mm.
The mind loves to slip into daydreaming, to slip into the daydreaming. So the very first skill really is developing the ability to intentionally come out of our heads, sort of wake up, really,
Yeah.
even though we are awake, to wake up and to notice, yeah, what was I telling myself there? What was I saying?
Mm.
And then to choose what you're going to do. But it all starts with self-awareness. Self-awareness and being able to decide where you place your attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's normal in this stressful world where we're distracted, we're rushed, we're tired, we're hungry, we're worried. When we're like that, all of us go into our heads. We become self-occupied and we just daydream. We're in our heads.
Mm.
It's a skill to actually shift your attention out of this virtual world, this pretend world, and back into the real world. Because when you do that, you're in a much better position to choose. When we're in our heads just daydreaming, we don't really choose. We're kind of swept along by our emotions and by our thoughts.
Yeah.
It's not really choosing. It's more a kind of autopilot.
Mm.
It's more like being a zombie. There's been a lot of zombie films recently where they seem to be walking and choosing,
Yes.
but they're not really. There's not really very much decision making going on. They're kind of sleepwalking.
Mm.
We all, and they estimate it's about 50% of our waking lives. We spend about 50% of it not in our head, not in the real world, but thinking, just daydreaming, kind of sleepwalking. So if we're going to be courageous, we need to get out of our heads, not 100% of the time, but at times get out of our heads and kind of wake up. Oh, okay, right. No, what's real? What's real? And it's from that position that we can choose. So the first skill is self-awareness, coupled with getting out of our heads and separating ourselves from our thoughts and our thinking. They talk about trains of thought, Toby, trains of thought. And all of us at times are on trains of thought. And when we're on it or in a train of thought, really the train decides where we go. We're not at the front. I don't think they have these at the front of, but you know what I mean.
Yes,
we're not really,
yes.
we're not really steering the train. We're a passenger. We're a passenger to our thinking. And it's natural for us to imagine better futures, and then part of the mind to say, oh yeah, but what if this happens? But what if they don't like it? What if we fail? What if it's embarrassing? What if? And while we're in the train of thought, we will be taken wherever the train decides to take us. We're all vulnerable to that. So there's a skill, a psychological skill, in noticing our thinking and stepping off the train, in a sense of stepping out of the train of thought onto the platform of the present and getting better at noticing what's on the train. There's the train. And I'm telling myself it's not going to work, that no one will like it, that I don't have the skills, that I'm not experienced enough, or whatever the mind is dreaming up. Yeah. And it's from that platform that you can actually say, yeah, I wonder to what extent that's true. I wonder. While you're in the train, you're incapable of any kind of critical thinking. You're just believing it. Oh yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, what if they don't like it? Oh yeah. What if it is embarrassing? Yeah. So it's a skill that we can practice, actually noticing our thoughts. And there's training exercises we can do to get better at noticing our thoughts, separating from them, and coming to the present, the real world, and choosing, deciding, truly choosing, not just being swept along by our thinking, but truly choosing. Yeah. So I help people to manage their minds, to direct the attention and to hold their attention with intention. To hold their attention with intention. It's a skill, and everyone can get better at it.
Yes, but I just have a question right now. Like you made a description of like a moving train, which we have no control over. What about if I consciously want to get off the train, but the train does not seem to stop? I want to get off the
Well,
train to look at the doubts and the issues and the fear from from the platform, but the train does not stop, and there's no way I can get off the train. What should I do?
well, we can only take this train metaphor so far. But what I'd like to say first of all about the train of thought is that it never stops. It never stops. So your mind is going to, and my mind too, is going to continue to generate thoughts regardless. It's just what minds do. They just keep. You cannot stop your mind. It's impossible to stop your mind from thinking. It just keeps generating stuff. But what we can discover is that it's possible for us to take action, to do things, even when our mind is saying, don't do it. Don't do it. We can choose. So you and I can have the thought now that I cannot lift my hand. You could think it. I cannot. It's impossible to lift my hand. And you can think that. Yep, I can't lift my hand. Impossible to lift my hand. And I can still lift my hand. Thoughts do not control behavior. They influence it, but they do not control it. All of us can step out of the train of thought even while it's still moving. You don't need to stop it. And there are exercises you can do to, and it won't hurt, not like a real train. It'll be a terrible idea to step off a moving train. But when it's your train of thoughts, it's a soft landing. It's a very soft landing.
Yeah, I did like some exercises you could teach us on this in this episode or the podcast, or do we have to like connect with you? Or
no, because you can come back to the present moment. Mm-hmm. You can step off the train by getting grounded, by actually getting grounded. So we all begin when we're in our train in our heads. We're actually sort of in our heads. So the first thing you want to do, if you'd like to step off the train, as it were, is to come back into your body. Just come back out, get out of your head. And you can do this by putting your hands together. You could put your fingers together and just push your fingertips together and notice the sensation of touch on your fingertips. Can you feel it?
Yes.
Can you feel it? Yeah. Direct your attention to that. Hold the chair you're sitting on. Feel the chair. Just allow yourself to kind of squeeze it and feel your body in the chair. So your attention is now in your body. You could notice your breathing, but we want to direct our attention to our physical body, not this fantasy virtual reality, but we bring our attention to what's real. So you start there, and then you can direct your attention to the place that you're in. So you leave your, thank you, body, but now you might notice three things that you can see. What are three things that you can see right now, Toby, in your real world?
In my real world, I can see my laptop.
Laptop.
I can see my microphone.
Microphone.
I can see you actually from the laptop, but
yes, and you can. Yeah, that's an image of me. Yeah, great. So what we do is that we direct ourselves to three things that we can see. We might notice three things that we can hear in the real world, and maybe three things that we can touch. So this exercise gets us out of our head and just brings us into the present moment. Now, your head will still continue to say, oh, yes, but what if this, what if that? But you are now in the present moment. You're in the real world. And from here, you are in a much better position to choose what you're going to do next, to truly choose. But you can only do that, you can only choose if you've decided in advance what's important to you, what matters to you. So we also want to spend a big chunk of time deciding in our lives, what do we choose to care about? Because there's a lot of messaging from our communities and from our cultures and from advertising that's telling us all, here's what we want you to care about. We want you to care about having the latest phone. It's really important that you don't leave the house without the most. You've got to have the most modern phone. And also you've got to look a certain way and you've got to behave a certain way. And if you're a male, of a certain age, then you ought to have this sort of a job and living this way. And if you're a woman of a certain age, well, you really ought to be living this way. So our cultures and our societies have got a lot of ideas about how they would like us to conform, how they would like us to behave. And look, a lot of them are very good ideas, that we should take care of one another and be law-abiding. It's a good idea. But there are other ones, other ideas from society, which they're not good fits for all of us. So some people really want to be creative. They're naturally creative. They shouldn't be lawyers and doctors. It's not a good fit. But perhaps parents might be saying, oh no, we really want you to be a doctor or a lawyer. All of us, if we're going to work out for ourselves what matters to us personally, and then risk incurring the disapproval of others, maybe to dress differently, to speak differently, to show up as yourself in this life, to go for a life that's meaningful to you. It might also be a meaningful life for your family and your community. They might also give you the thumbs up, but not always. Not always. It takes courage to be yourself. It takes courage. So working out what's important, it is really important to you, is a really important exercise. Working out our values, just how do we want to show up in this one life that we've got? What kind of people do we want to be?
Yes.
There's a book written recently called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying, Toby. A palliative care nurse called Bronnie Ware was looking after people in their last few days or weeks, hundreds of people, and she was hearing the same regrets.
What are they?
When people, the same top regrets. And the number one regret that she heard above all else when people were approaching the end of their life was this: I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself, not the life that others expected of me. This message from the dying is a gift to the living. They're saying, choose. What would a life that's true to yourself look like? What sort of ambitions would make your life meaningful? What kind of, maybe you'd like to have a family, but maybe you wouldn't. Maybe you're someone who preferred not to have children. Maybe you'd like to be creative, or you'd like to be a gardener, or you'd like to grow carrots, or you'd like to paint, or you'd like to develop a new vaccine. I don't know what, but choose for yourself, because otherwise others will choose for you. And we all risk getting to the end of this journey and potentially sharing the number one regret when there's no time left. There's no time left. You know, I wish I'd asked that person out. I wish I'd gone for that job. Yeah, but my friends said I shouldn't do it. You know, I wish I had started that business, but my family said I shouldn't take the risk. So we want to absorb this message from the dying, I'd suggest, and decide, okay, when I get to the end, what do I want to be able to say was true? Yes, I went for that. I may not have succeeded, but you know what? I'm really glad that I tried to become a poet. You know, I gave it my best shot. I'm so glad I dove into that passion. I immersed myself in trying to learn all I could about poetry and speaking, and because you will make some progress. I went for it. I went for it. And it's not just poetry, of course. It's relationships, it's businesses, it's how do we want to treat each other. Yeah. And the good news is these are skills. We can get better at knowing what's personally important. And it's not the job of 5 minutes. We don't do it in 5 minutes. It takes time to separate in our minds what's important to us from what's important to others.
Yes.
So we need to, it's a piece of work. What's important to you, Toby? Tell me what matters to you.
Oh, to live a purposeful life is very important to me. It matters to me a lot. To live a happy, purposeful, and fulfilling life, and also peaceful life. Actually,
Right. And then my next question, if we were working together, is
yes.
wonderful. I'd say wonderful. You'd like to be happy, purposeful, and meaningful. Fantastic. And what sort of activities, Toby, do you find meaningful? Tell me about some of the things, just a few of the things which you've done in your life which have been personally meaningful.
Yes. So, for example, this right now is for me very meaningful. Like hosting a podcast, having soulful conversation or meaningful conversations with experts and people like you, is very meaningful to me. And also, right from the onset, like when I was young, being acting in the theater, in the drama, in church, for example, like being very creative, like writing scripts, like script plays and acting myself as an actor on the stage is very meaningful to me because it passes across message to people and it impacts their life, hopefully, in one way or the other. That's very meaningful to
Writing scripts.
me.
Lovely. Is that something you have much of an opportunity to do today?
Now, less than before, actually, because of
Okay.
a lot of work. But I still, in my free time, I still write, like working on new books, for example, like novels, stories for myself in my free time, and also still writing script plays for the church that I attend, for example, when there's an event for it or an opportunity for that. Yeah.
Wonderful. So that is a meaningful activity.
Mm.
And so if we were working together, we'd be looking at trying to schedule that into your life if you wanted to, because there are some things which all of us have neglected a little bit and we need to dial up. And there are other activities in our life which perhaps we've given too much priority to. I can confess to a little bit too much time on Netflix, for example. But we're not recording this, right? Okay. And there are some things that I could do with dialing down, and I'm working on it, dialing down my some things which are less meaningful. So life is about adjusting as we go through it, dialing some things up and dialing some things down.
Yes.
And then we will discover some inner resistance. Oh, but I can't do that, because we find the resistance. And I work with people to help them to develop their courage so that they can choose to do more often what has been generating fear and holding them back. So I help people to live more courageously in their personal relationships and their professional lives too.
Yeah. So talking about being, courageous and ending one's life with few regrets, like being on
Yes.
the dying bed and saying, "Yes, I've done it all. I did everything
Well,
I really wish to do." So
you're very ambitious, Toby. You've done it all.
I tried it all and did everything I wanted to do.
Well, here's the deal. And this is one of the problems that we have. So I reckon there are 3 human predicaments that hold us back from living courageously. And one of them is the fact that because we are, I call this the biggest elephant in the room, Toby, okay? The thing that we will not talk about, the thing we really like to ignore, but it's in there, it's in front of us. And it's this: we're all going to die.
Yeah.
We are only here for a number of years, and that's it. Now, this fact, and it's just a fact, it's very uncomfortable. It generates a lot of sensations of personal annihilation. Of course it does. We spend a lot of effort in life trying to stay alive, an awful lot of effort, not getting run over, not getting electrocuted, not falling off high places. We work really hard to stay alive. So on the one hand, in our biology, we've got this message: do not die. Above all else, do not die. And then we have the reality: you must die. Now, these two do not sit very well together. They're like the same ends of a magnet. No, I must live and I must die. What? So what do we choose to do? Well, we put out of mind that we have today.
Mm.
The problem with this is that it robs us of a sense of urgency to live well now. The truth is we can't do everything because we're not here forever.
Mm.
We'd have to be, I don't know how many thousands, hundreds of millions of years we'd have to be around to do everything. We can't. We can only do some things. So which some things would you need to focus on if you only had, Toby, another 40 years or 50 years, and you do?
Yeah.
How are you going to live those 50 years in a way that you can honestly say at the end, well, you know what, I did a good job, the best I could, at prioritizing the right things.
Yeah.
It's a question of priorities. We've got to prioritize.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a piece of work. You know, that you can't decide in an afternoon.
Yes.
Yeah, how am I going to, which one path am I going to choose?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lovely website I'd encourage your listeners to visit. It's called count.life. Count.life. You just type that in.
Mm-hmm.
And it only asks you two questions. It'll say, one, when were you born? Yeah, you're going to write it down.
Yeah.
COUNT
Mm-hmm.
dot LIFE.
Yeah, count.life.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry about the www. You just count.life. Enter. It'll ask you, when were you born? You type in your date of birth. It'll say, okay, how long do you think you're going to live? Give yourself 100 years. Yeah, be generous. Yeah, I was generous. And then what it does, it gives you, it's like a brick wall. It's a brick wall. And there's one brick for every week of your life. It shows you the bricks in one color for the bricks you've lived. And then it shows you your remaining bricks. And I predict to your listeners, it's not possible to look at that wall to see the remaining weeks of your life without getting having a very strong experience that there aren't that many.
Mm-hmm.
If we can talk about, I've got another 50 years, 60 years, 70 years, we can talk about that. But those ideas, they're quite difficult for the mind to grasp. Mm-hmm. When you have a visual representation of your weeks, you'll see, whoa, that's not so many.
No.
I thought there was a lot more.
Yeah.
And this is a little bit uncomfortable, but it's a good thing because it activates an urgency to live today. This week is irreplaceable. You can't get another brick put at the end. It doesn't work like that. You can't say, could we just replay that one? It didn't. Could we just do that one again? It didn't work so well. I made a few poor choices. No, these are irreplaceable. When you really take that to heart, that time is irreplaceable, it activates a deep respect and valuing of the minutes of your life. And it helps us to choose more effectively. Yeah. We procrastinate less when we really own our time, take responsibility for our irreplaceable minutes, Toby. There's nothing any of us have that's more precious than our time. But it's so easy to put it out of our heads and, I'll do it next week. I'll do it next month. I'll get around to it. The time to get around to living this one life, it's this moment. Right. The time for you and I to connect, it's now.
Yes.
It's now.
I'm talking about taking our life into our hands and living right now and living our best life till the end of our days here on earth. I would love us to talk about your book, Swipe Right on Your Best Self. I think Mr. Bruce Harris wrote that it's an entertaining, well-written, playful, and practical approach to building the life that you want. So can you tell me about your book? What was the inspiration behind the name? And how can we live a bolder life with fewer regrets?
Yes. So the story behind the name, Swipe Right on Your Best Self, is that I'm sure it's the same in Germany where you are, but online dating apps have become totally mainstream now. It's completely ordinary. And I read last week 30% of people who are in a relationship actually met their partner online. 30. So it's become a very ordinary thing. And as you perhaps know, the most popular app is called Tinder, and it's only been around, it's not many years, 8 or 10 years. But in Tinder, what happens is you are presented with a profile, a picture of someone and a description of the things that they like to do. And you're given this picture one at a time. It's a bit like a sushi train. If you've ever been to a sushi restaurant, you get a little plate of food and it comes around. You get to decide, do I want to, shall I take that plate and put it in front of me and eat it, or shall I let it pass? So Tinder gives you a profile. And if you like the look of that person, you think, yeah, I'd like to spend time with that person. You put your finger on the screen and you swipe right. You're choosing yes. If you think, no, I don't think I'd like to spend time with that person, you put your finger on and you swipe left. People spend a lot of time on Tinder, Toby, a lot of time. And we all spend a lot of time thinking about the kind of people we'd like to live with, the kind of other people we'd like to have in our lives. But what we tend not to think about is the kind of person that we would like to be in life. You are going to spend a lot more time with Toby in your remaining years than you are with anybody else.
Yeah, sure.
So, yeah, and I'm going to spend a lot more time with Eric.
Yes.
And actually, we forget this, but how we show up in this world, how we behave, what we prioritize, it's a choice. It's a choice. So my book is about how we can get better at choosing, at swiping right, to be our best selves. Whatever best means to you. I'm not trying to tell anyone what I think you ought to be doing, what is best for you. That's not my job. But it is my job to help others to fathom out, actually, yeah, if I wasn't my best in this day, what kind of things would I be doing? What kind of choices would I be making around my exercise and my food and how I spoke to people, how I did my work, how I lived?
Yeah.
That's what the book is about. How can I help people to choose how they are going to live in this one precious, extraordinary life that they've been gifted?
Can you walk me through the steps to swiping right on my best self so that I can always, meet any challenge more effectively?
Well, I've got 7 steps laid out in the book. And to be perfectly honest, trying to fit all 7 steps into this one conversation is going to be a bit tricky. But at a very high level, what I'd like to say is let's boil it down into 3 steps. 1, you're going to work out what's important to you, what matters to you. So I'm going to spend time thinking about that. 2, you are going to get better at noticing when you're challenged, noticing the moments when a challenge is happening, when you feel that surge of doubt, concern, anger, resentment, worry, whatever it is. So one of the steps is to get better at noticing the moments of challenge. Stepping back, we spoke about that earlier on, coming back into the real world. And finally, asking yourself a question. Once you're out of your head, asking yourself this question. Now, what would the kind of person I want to be do? What would the kind of person I want to be do? So we need to know what's important. We need to notice when we're being challenged and disengage from unhelpful thinking. And finally, once we're in this position to choose, we ask ourselves that question. Okay, now what would the kind of person I want to be do?
So what about if I found out what I want to do, for example, to become my best self, how can I equip myself to, take those courageous action steps? How can I develop my mindsets, to be courageous enough to take bold steps to, pursue that job, pursue that relationship, or pursue my big dreams in life?
Well, so there are two things that influence you, Toby, in life. There are only two things
Mm.
influence you and me. We like to think we're quite complicated human beings, but actually, at the end of the day, it boils down to just two things. There are things that we want to experience more of in life,
Mm.
and we move towards those. And there are things that we want to experience less of in life, and we move away from those. Well, there are three mindsets that I believe will support living more courageously, Toby.
Mm.
The first one is an antidote to the sort of culture that we have in much of the Western world of toxic junk values that we're being fed. So we're talking earlier on about how we're being encouraged to buy more stuff. None of us look attractive enough. None of us are rich enough, popular enough, qualified enough. We're just told continually that we're not enough,
Mm.
that we lack by our advertising and the media. And this actually depletes our ability to live with courage because we feel inadequate, not up to the job. We feel like we're lacking. So, actually, the first thing to do if we want to live courageously
Mm.
is to cultivate an attitude of defiant gratitude
Mm.
for what we do have. I
Yeah.
call it defiant gratitude. Defiant because the advertising world does not want you to feel satisfied. No. It cannot function if you're happy.
Mm.
You must feel a sense of something missing. Oh, I just don't have enough.
Mm.
So the first thing to do is to cultivate a sense of gratitude for what you do have. And strangely enough, some of my executive clients say, but hang on, if I'm grateful for what I have, won't that sap my motivation to get more?
Yeah.
Won't that reduce my drive?
Mm.
And no, paradoxically, it actually supports ambition. When we feel we're lacking and we're operating from a sense of lack, then we're needy. We're really operating from fear. Oh, I don't have enough. I need to fill the gap. What will people think?
Yeah.
If I'm not attractive enough or popular enough, so we're really operating out of fear. But when we can cultivate gratitude for what we do have in life,
Mm.
appreciation for the small things, then actually it gives us a stronger foundation to be ambitious from. It gives us a stronger foundation
Yeah.
to operate from. So, one, we cultivate gratitude
Mm.
for our friends, for hot and cold running water, for the internet, for computers when they work. We're grateful for those
Yeah.
times. And there's a lot in life that's actually quite good. We live in a time of miracles, Toby,
Mm.
an age of miracles,
Mm.
where we can get strawberries all year round, where we can talk to people on the other side of the planet, where we can create vaccines in a matter of months to save lives.
Mm.
So one, we cultivate gratitude. The second mindset that supports being courageous is one of self-compassion. Self-compassion. Our courage is diminished when we feel isolated and different from others. The reality is that everybody in the world has a human mind,
Yeah.
which worries, which predicts the worst, which is anxious. And unfortunately, a lot of people look around and they compare their insides with other people's outsides. And when we do that, we think, hang on, everybody else seems to have it together. Everyone else is smiling. No one else ever seems to be worried. Everyone else seems happy. It's just me.
Mm.
It's what's wrong with me?
Mm.
Well, the good news is there's nothing wrong with you. You're supposed to have a self-critical mind, a mind that's worried and anxious at times. Everybody does, but we just can't see it. We can't see it. So the second mindset is one of self-kindness, self-compassion. And it's being kind to ourselves. Yes, I have this worried mind. Yes, actually, things are hard at the moment, perhaps. It is tough. I am worried. It's an honest attitude to your lived experience. And it's knowing that you are not isolated. As I said before, when you think you're isolated, it actually diminishes your courage. When we feel alone, we do not feel more courageous. We feel more courageous when we're together, when we belong, when we are the same as other people. So we need to recognize actually everybody has a kind of human mind that is worried and predicts the worst and doesn't feel good enough. We're all in this together. And I actually think this is one of the few upsides of this pandemic. I think it's brought the planet to some degree together. We're all in this together. We're all in the same boat.
That's true.
Really. So this second mindset of self-compassion, it supports being courageous. When we're kind to ourselves, it actually emboldens the mind. So I'm not talking about being indulgent, where you just lie on the sofa eating chocolate and watching Netflix and drinking wine. That's not a kindness. That's not actually a kindness. That's indulgence. But if you were kinder to yourself today, what might you do? If you were really taking care, if you befriended your body, for example, if you were friendly towards your body, how might you treat your body today? So this, and we might give it, possibly, I'm speaking for myself again, I might give it different fuel, possibly. I might exercise it a little bit more. But kindness supports courage. Kindness supports courage. The third mindset and the final mindset is what I call courageous authenticity. This is the willingness to do what's important at the same time that it's uncomfortable. It's being willing. A lot of our society tells us you should feel confident. It's so important to feel confident. It's really important to feel confident. And actually, it's not true. It's really nice to feel confident. Yes, I love it too. I love feeling confident. But do not procrastinate your personally meaningful life for a time in the future when you will finally feel confident that everything will go well. We need to take action before we have certainty of success. We need to take action while we have some small degree of lacking confidence. We need to act now. So this third mindset is a willingness to take action while we're still experiencing discomfort.
Take actions when you're still experiencing discomfort in life.
There is no comfortable courage. And I think it was Brené Brown who said something along the lines of, you can choose comfort or you can choose courage, but you cannot have both. Choose comfort or choose courage. So this third mindset is about developing your personal willingness to do what is personally meaningful at the same time as feeling uncomfortable. There's a price to being courageous. There's a price to reaching for the relationships you want. There's a price to being ambitious in your work. And the price is discomfort. And you get to choose, either pay the price willingly or do not pay it. And that's okay too. You can say, actually, you know what? I'm going to choose not to go for that particular job or relationship because the price is too high. And that is a legitimate choice. But there are some choices you're going to make, and there will be a price. You cannot have a courageous, meaningful, purposeful life. You were talking earlier on about having a purposeful life. You cannot have a purposeful life without discomfort. So developing a willingness to pay. I think it's an honest way of living. When you go shopping for something, there's a price for anything you want on the shelf.
True.
And you get to choose, Toby. Do I want to pay for that? And there are times when you'll say, no, that price is too high. That's a bad trade. But there is nothing in that store for free.
That's true.
No, I don't think they have anything in stores now that's free. Everything comes at a price. And you're an honest man, I'm an honest man. When we go there, we take things, put things in the basket, and we agree to pay the price. Well, living a purposeful life is the same. You're going to choose to go for things that mean something to you, and there will be an emotional price to pay. There will be some anxiety, some doubt, some worry, some concern. That's the deal. Pay it or don't pay it, but choose.
Can we extend this to like leadership roles? Because I know you spend much of your time, developing authentically courageous leadership. So can you teach me how I can be authentic and courageous in a leadership role, for example?
Yes. Well, the authentic part is up to you. So you have to decide, what kind of a leader do you want to be? Do you want to be? And again, I cannot tell people what kind of leaders they choose to be, but I help people to identify the qualities that they would like to demonstrate in their leadership. And it might be growing others. It could be developing their ability to hold back and to listen to more alternatives, patience. It could be it could be power. It could be that. It could be they want to be assertive. It could be that they want to have control. It could be that they want to be kind, that they want to make a bigger difference to more people. I let people decide for themselves. But a lot of the things that we want to do in our careers, we hold back because we don't feel courageous. So a lot of people will not speak up in meetings. Say they have an idea and they better not. They keep quiet.
True.
So some people will hold back. They don't have the courage to share their ideas. They don't have the courage to challenge inappropriate behavior. There could be bullying or harassment. They keep quiet. They don't challenge it. Some people don't have the courage to admit when they've made a mistake. It takes courage to say, actually, guys, I've got to let you know I've made an error and we need to fix it up. They don't have the courage to ask for help when they need it. So they don't have courage to apply for bigger roles. They don't have the courage to accept delegated responsibilities. We need courage in every aspect of our professional lives. And, we're all leaders of some sort. We're either leading ourselves or maybe we're leading a small team. The leading is just influence. You're influencing people. You cannot go through a career without influencing the people you work with. And as you move up the rungs, if that's what you choose to do, you will have influence on a larger number of people. So we are all leaders. Everybody has some sort of leadership responsibility. And doing what is meaningful, challenging, new is going to require courage.
Yes, that's true.
And I've been talking about the courage to take action, to ask for help, to admit mistakes, to apply for new roles, things like that. But what we often forget is that we also need courage to exercise restraint.
How do you do that?
Not to speak up.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I just want to... I just want to press send on this email. I just want to let them know what Actually, it takes courage not to do that. It takes courage not to drink another glass of beer when you've had a hard day. So there's a courage in resisting urges, resisting impulses. That requires courage. And it's not just food. It's not just habits. It's everything. We have urges right throughout our day, impulses, often to do the easy thing. That's what it's like to be a human being. We are continually attacked by urges encouraging us to do it later. No, don't do it. Do it. Our mind is forever saying, do it later. Do it later. Have another drink. Stop. Put work later. Make that call later. Start that project later. Defer. So actually choosing to resist urges is another part of courage. I think courage is the key quality of having an intentional life.
Yeah. Yes.
And a purposeful life is an intentional life.
Yes.
And
That's what I'm taking away from this podcast, like courage, like to be intentionally life, to live a purposeful life, I have to be courageous. And yes, that leads to me having an intentional life actually, and a purposeful life too.
Agreed. 100%. And it's something we can get better at. Every single one of us can get better at. And you never master it. You never get 100%. It's like everything in life. No one ever masters anything. There are no tennis players that stop training. They don't exist. There are no golf players that stop practicing. They don't exist. In any endeavor in life, whatever it is, there are no parents that can't develop and get better as being parents. No gardeners, no artists that don't have to practice. All of us, we all need to keep improving. That's the game, improvement. And courage is something that we can continue to get better at, all of us.
Yes.
And that's what I talk about in the book.
Yes. So what's the best place to get the book, for example? Like I know from your website it's very easy to get also, but are there other platforms? Yeah.
Yes, people who are located in Australia can get it from my website, ericwinters.com.au. But if you're outside of Australia, it's available from all online booksellers, all of them, in ebooks, Kindle and other ebooks, or as paper. I like paper, but I'd have to say, if I'm honest, Toby, the books that I really love, I often get an ebook first, and then I'll scan it, I'll copy it, highlight it, and I think, oh no, I like this book too much. I need the hard copy as well.
Yeah.
And so then I order that. There's nothing quite like, for me, being able to touch it and hold it and flick it. I have tried to write a very easily accessible book. Look, this is not a thick, heavy, daunting book. I don't like books that are like bricks that make my heart sink. So the chapters are short. They get to the point. There's no waffle. This is a waffle-free book. It's not one of those books where you have to wade through padding, like bubble wrap words. There's one idea in the middle of the book, but you've got to wade through all this bubble wrap to get to the middle. This book is just multiple ideas, bang, 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 no bubble wrap.
Yes. So I have a last question for you, like just a question for reflecting. Like you've come so far in life and achieved so much already. If you could tell your 25-year-old self something, what would that be? How would you advise him?
Yeah, I'd say go for it. Go for it. You are capable of much, much more than you realize. I might say your potential is unknown and unknowable. So I would encourage my 25-year-old self to be much bolder in going for what they want. Yeah.
Yes. And look, earlier you talked about, sorry, I said that was the last question actually, but now I have another question to ask. You talked about, the 5 secrets that, the 5 regrets that dying people have, for example. So far from your experience of in life, what's like that number 1 regret that most people have? Is it the one we talked about already, or is there another number 1 secret? Number 1 regret that most people have in life?
Well, we were talking about the top regrets of the dying. So they were the regrets of the people at the end. Most people do not have those regrets until they get older in life. So that regret, I wish I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself. That realization doesn't happen for people when they're 20. people when they're 20 do not say, oh, I wish I'd been more courageous. When we're 20, we just wish that we were richer or more popular or had more girlfriends or more boyfriends. Or we really don't have much perspective on life. We just want to feel good now.
Yeah.
Really. And of course, all of us want to feel good now for most of our lives. But no, I think the regrets that I hear from leaders at the moment is that they seldom call them regrets, but they have ambitions and they want to be more influential and have more confidence. So actually, maybe it is the same. A lot of people say to me, Eric, I wish I was more confident to apply for a particular role, more confident to build the business that I want. Help me change my mind to become more confident. And actually being confident is it's a fantasy. It feels like we could achieve anything if only we were confident. The truth is, you can achieve anything even while you do not feel confident. Do not wait to feel confident. You can take action with doubt, without certainty. So do not chase confidence. It's a mirage. It's a mirage of success. Instead, pursue courage. And the good news is confidence follows, but from behind. It catches up with you after you've taken action. Courage is a reward for being courageous and having life experiences. So do not wait for confidence. That it's coming behind, but if you stop, it will stop as well. So you've got to race ahead with your boldly, courageously, personally meaningful life. Courage, confidence, it'll catch up eventually.
Yes. So we should be courageous to take those steps, those bold steps in life, and eventually confidence will catch up with us. And yes, we'll live a much more fulfilled life with, a lot of assurance that we are living our best life.
Yes, absolutely. Our best life is something that we discover. We discover. It doesn't come to us. We have to author it ourselves by moving ahead. And that's what I would encourage both my 25-year-old self and all your listeners to. Yeah. Author your own lives and do it courageously and move forward. And have a wonderful time.
Awesome. That's beautiful. So for anyone who wants to connect with you and work with you, for example, what's the best way or means to do that?
Yes, please connect with me on LinkedIn. And also I'm on Facebook as well, but I spend most of my time on LinkedIn. And my handle there is @EricWinters.com.au. But if you just search for Eric Winters, you'll see a bald face, something like this. Yeah. Just connect. I'd love to connect with everyone who's interested in leading a more courageous life.
Yes. To make it easier, I'm going to place all of this information to your website, your LinkedIn, and Facebook in the show notes for this episode, so anyone could just click on them or copy them and get across to Eric Winters. And yes, get as much information as possible that we're not able to cover in this episode, for example. That was awesome.
Yeah, wonderful. Yes. Toby, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you so much for being a part of this episode. Thank you so much for teaching me about courage, about being confident. Thank you so much for everything you taught me today. I really appreciate it.